Um, yeah, so let's just crack on here. We're ready, Cockaman. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Thanks for the follow. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm gonna pull out some black gray. Reaper black gray, 862. I'll just use this as a first stage highlight here, just to kind of pull some tone up out of the black, and just kind of feather the grip of the handle there. Wonderful. Grendler's following. Thanks for the follow. And then just I've got that beige sitting on the palette, so I'm just gonna pull like some of that beige in and just do like a very let's say like a medium. It's like a mid-tone gray, just for this final highlight. Just kind of run that. Just on the high points, just to, I don't want it to be gray, I want it to be still black, but I just want a little bit of pop, kind of on these high points where the rest of the model is highlighted. Yeah, let's see if I can find a, give me a second here, I'll see if I can do a zoom in. Pull up my webcam controls here. Yeah, so when I paint faces, basically, especially for male models and especially for Mark Copplestone sculpts, he has very well-defined faces when he does his models. So like there's this guy here. Basically, I focus on eyebrows, nose, chin, and the upper and bottom lips. And that really kind of makes those particular features pop. You know, obviously this guy's a little more covered up because he's got his sunglasses on. But, you know, for this guy here, I don't even think I'm going to bother painting his eyes, because they're so far underneath the brow that it's basically, you know, completely hidden by the way this model is sculpted. So this is another model that I've done. This is the, you know, kind of like your Fallout style survivor. And kind of the same thing, I've really focused on keeping, you know, tops of the cheeks, the eyebrows, the nose, and the mouth and the chin. I'm hoping, let me see if I can bring the focus in a little bit and pull this a little bit closer. There we go, now you can see what I'm talking about. So when I'm painting facial details, I really focus on the top parts of the model, where the light would actually be reflecting. So for this guy here, you're looking at tops of the eyebrows, the nose, you know, the bridge of the nose, the two nostrils on either side, cheekbones, and then obviously tops of the ears and his you know, top of his scalp there where he's got his shaved head, and then I sometimes keep the bottom lip a little darker to differentiate. I don't think I did the final highlight on this guy's bottom lip. Yeah, it's a fairly straightforward process, and I pretty much do the same. Let me pull out some of my World War II guys, and I'll kind of give you guys a breakdown of how that plays out. Give me a second. Alright, so I got a couple minis here. I'll pull out one of the cavemen that I've painted. And this is a case of painting kind of like a very stylized flesh. Where, you know, these cobblestone cavemen are basically, I'm going to zoom out actually just a little bit. These cavemen have a ton of really well sculpted musculature, muscles, whatever you want to call it, and leaving some of those dark tones in there really kind of helps pop the miniature. Um, so you can see here, I focused on his nose and his cheekbones, and then I didn't bother painting his eyes, I just painted underneath his eyelids, and what that kind of does is it gives the effect that he's kind of squinting. And I just left those dark shades kind of up underneath his eyes there. So I actually didn't even bother painting his eyes on that guy. And then these are some 20 mil Germans that I painted for Stalingrad. And this is a good idea of kind of how I do my faces for smaller scale stuff. You can see nose, cheeks, top lip, bottom chin. That's kind of really all you need to do for those models. And then from a distance, you know, it just gives the effect of having, oh, it's a little too far. And from the distance, it just basically gives that effect of having shade and shadow where you'd expect it to be. And I didn't bother painting the eyes. The eyes are just kind of like a dark red color. Yeah, so that's the one thing I found when painting. Some of my earlier stuff that I was painting at this, especially like 20 mil scale, I didn't have enough pop and contrast between my shading. And it just kind of shows. These I took a little bit longer time to paint, and actually I think I've got, I think I actually have some that I'm painting in progress right now. Oh, I can also show you some. Here's another example of painting skin and not painting eyes. So these are Frostgrave models. You can see he's got just black in his eyes. It's just like the dark base coat of the model. It's not paint. I haven't bothered painting any of the eyes on any of my Frostgrave guys except for the heroes. This is just basically like two tones of. It's really hard because the. Maybe that's better. Just pull the second light away. Yeah, especially like for the Frostgrave guys, I wanted them to kind of have like a pale, cold look. What I'll probably do is come back later at some point and do like just some very thin red glazes over like their nose and their cheeks to kind of make it look like it's cold. But this is a case where, you know, you don't have to paint your eyes if you just kind of paint like the under parts, you know, like the bottom part of their eyelids. Yeah, so Greg, here, give me a second. I'll throw in the hashtag figurines because I didn't even think of that. Because I guess they're not always called miniatures. Thanks for the host, I appreciate that. They're not always called miniatures everywhere around the world, so if people are hosting, you know, from different countries or whatever. Okay, I do need to bring that light back here, though. So we'll get back to painting this guy. Be nice to get him finished. Actually, I might be able to finish another model today. Was it almost 4 o'clock? It's not too bad. Yeah, it's just kind of a painting style that I've sort of adapted over the years to try and just be a little bit above tabletop quality with the number of kind of layers and highlights, but at the same time just kind of keep the amount of painting that you have to do to a minimum to get the effect that you want. Because a lot of times 2 highlights is really all you need over a base coat. You know, you need a dark shade to differentiate, you know, your areas of color. And then really all you need is just like a little bit of highlights just kind of on the very edges, and that's kind of one painting style. The other painting style is, you know, you go your super high blending, you know, wet blending, anything of that nature. I'm gonna back the camera out just a little bit here. And I think, how's that for focus? Okay, only visible in painting. Okay. Okay. How is that? If I'm holding it here, I think I need to... Do I need to bring the focus up a little bit? No, I need to drop it back. There we go. Yeah, there we go. That's better. What was I saying? Painting styles. Yeah, I mean, for a lot of people, like, you know, 1 or 2 highlights, that's really all you need, just to get the model to pop at a distance. And really, the highlights just need to be controlled. And there just needs to be enough difference between your darks and your lights to make what you're painting pop. You know, it's not like a rocket science of trying to get, you know, the very perfect blending of everything. It's like, models will look great. You know, if you're doing like very close photography of your models, Obviously, you know, if you're trying to win competitions or anything like that, that's a case where you'll want to paint to that standard, where you're looking at the model from 2 or 3 inches away, or from tabletop distances. Just having some good contrast is really kind of all you need, and just controlled highlights. That's really the name of the game. So I'm just going to use some of this Panzer Aces German Tank Crew #2. It's kind of like a brownish gray color, and I'm just going to do some edge brushing on the hair here. I'm assuming it's human hair. I have no idea. They're tribals. I mean, this could be like, yeah, I guess it would be human hair, because this is a skull. It's underneath here, at least. And I'll do some kind of glazing and shades on this to redefine the color. Actually, what I might do is highlight it up to kind of like a pale bleached blonde color, like maybe it was sun bleached for a long time, like he's had it up here for a while. So what we're saying in chat? Started with sharp contrast flesh. Contrast nowadays, I'm trying to softer shadows, tones, and yeah, exactly. I mean, I've still kind of been torn between certain painting styles. Like, certain painting styles are very conducive to certain styles of miniature. Like, I know for anything by like the big companies like Weird and GW and Privateer Press, their models tend to be kind of more subtle with the feature contrast that they have. So like the actual details aren't as pronounced. They're not as, you know, chunky or bulky, or, you know, whereas you look at models like Foundry or Reaper, actually not Reaper, Foundry, Artisan, they've got kind of more of a chunky style that lends itself to kind of the way that I'm painting, which is more kind of like a block paint of high contrast. It just kind of depends. I mean, you can make, I've seen models like this painted up beautifully, and then I've seen them painted just like 2 or 3 colors. It's like, wow, that just really kind of works. You know, from a distance, it makes it look, you know, believable that, you know, from 2 or 3 feet away, that this model is just going to look absolutely fine. Because not everyone is painting to, you know, have their miniatures photographed for, you know, magazine printouts and all this other kind of stuff. And actually, a lot of times your photos will be deceiving to what you're actually painted, because you know, we've got such good quality cameras these days that all the detail really pops, and anything that you've missed is, you know, exaggerated because you're looking at this on a, you know, big 27-inch monitor, or, you know, something to that effect. When in reality, you know, it's just, you know, that's just the model that you painted, and it turns out, you know, from a good distance away, you can't really even tell that it's, you know, imperfect. But I guess at the same time, like, an imperfectly painted model is gonna, in my opinion, have a little more character and a little more liveliness, I guess, than this perfectly shaded, perfectly blended, you know, I hesitate to say parody of real life, but like, you know, you look at any of the guys that are doing like the big scale, you know, like 1/6 scale busts, and, you know, the characters like the Teutonic Knights that they do, where everything is like beautifully oil blended and everything. It's like they look beautiful, they're beautiful models, but in real life, very little of what you see in real life looks like that. You know, it's like, it's, even just looking at my glove here, it's like you've got this really dark color right next to this really light color. And if I was doing this as kind of like a scale model, there'd be this smooth blended transition, and, you know, all these, there'd be like very light here and very dark. When in reality, it's just kind of like, you know, there's just kind of colors, you know, all over the place, and it's trying to get that, I call it kind of like a painterly effect on your miniatures, is kind of how I paint. But this is just me. Don't conform to my particular standards. I mean, you guys, by all means, check out all the people that are painting, and pick up the techniques that you like and think that you're going to use. And that's kind of what we do the streaming for, is to interact with gamers and painters, to say, hey, here's how I paint, here's how I do this technique, and maybe it'll work for you. And if it doesn't, what techniques do you use? And, you know, how could I be doing this better? Because that's another thing I've learned is, you know, there are other techniques that people are using. It's like, oh crap, why didn't I ever think of doing it that way? I just had to look over at my screen real quick to make sure I wasn't just muted this whole time and talking nonsense to no one. It's another thing I've done a couple times.